Hello CSS aspirants, and welcome to Crash CSS. My name is Hamza Akbar, and I will be guiding you through today's foundational session on anthropology, a subject that often appears in the CSS syllabus and is crucial for building strong conceptual understanding. Before we explore its historical development or theoretical schools, we must first understand what anthropology actually means. Anthropology is widely known as the science of humanity because it studies human beings in every dimension: our biological evolution, our cultural development, our languages, and the social systems we create. It is a holistic and comparative discipline that examines human life across all times and places, exploring how humans have evolved physically, how societies form, how communication shapes identity, and how culture influences everything from belief systems to daily practices. This is why anthropology sits at the intersection of natural science and the humanities. It recognizes that human biology and human culture are deeply interconnected. To make sense of such a vast field, anthropology is divided into four major branches. Cultural or social anthropology studies living societies and their customs. Archaeology reconstructs past civilizations through material remains. Biological or physical anthropology examines human evolution, fossils, and genetic variation. Linguistic anthropology investigates human language and the role it plays in shaping culture and thought. Together, these branches give anthropology a uniquely comprehensive perspective. Standard textbooks recommended for CSS, including those by Haviland, Kotak, Bodley, and Akbar S. Ahmed, emphasize this holistic view. With this definition and scope in mind, we can now move toward understanding how anthropology developed historically. In the 19th century, anthropology began taking shape as an academic discipline against a backdrop of European colonial expansion and growing scientific interest in human origins. Early anthropologists such as Edward Burnett Tylor, Lewis Henry Morgan, and James Fraser believed that human societies developed through a single, universal sequence of stages. They suggested that all cultures progressed from what they labeled savage to barbarian to civilized, a framework known as unilineal cultural evolution. This approach attempted to apply evolutionary thinking to culture in the same way Darwin's ideas applied to biology. Tylor's famous definition of culture, describing it as a complex whole that includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, custom, and other capabilities acquired by humans as members of society, became a foundational statement for early anthropology. The classical period was marked by attempts to categorize and rank societies based on assumptions of progress. Early anthropologists relied heavily on second-hand reports, traveler accounts, and missionary writings to build grand theories about humanity. While these models helped organize the enormous amount of cultural information arriving from around the world, they also carried strong ethnocentric and colonial biases, portraying Western societies as superior and more advanced. This perspective would later be heavily criticized for oversimplifying cultural diversity and imposing hierarchical judgments. Yet this early era laid essential groundwork by raising key questions about how cultures develop, why societies differ, and whether human cultural evolution follows identifiable patterns. The limitations of evolutionism eventually led to a major shift in the early 20th century, when thinkers like Franz Boas challenged these assumptions and transformed the discipline entirely. As anthropology entered the early 20th century, one figure dramatically reshaped the discipline: Franz Boas. Often called the father of American anthropology, Boas rejected the sweeping generalizations and cultural ranking systems of the classical evolutionists. Instead of assuming that all societies developed through universal stages, Boas argued that every culture has its own unique path shaped by its distinct history, environment, and circumstances. This approach became known as historical particularism. Boas believed that no single evolutionary scale could explain the complexity of human societies. To truly understand a culture, the anthropologist must study it on its own terms by examining its specific historical development. This meant moving away from armchair theorizing and relying instead on rigorous, immersive fieldwork. Boas also introduced the powerful concept of cultural relativism. emphasizing that beliefs and practices should be understood in the context of the culture in which they occur, rather than judged by external standards. This idea encouraged anthropologists to approach cultures with empathy rather than bias. Boas demonstrated this through extensive fieldwork among Native American groups, documenting their languages, traditions, and historical experiences. His students extended his legacy. Margaret Mead's research in Samoa revealed how culture shapes adolescence, while Ruth Benedict's studies in Japan and other societies showed how cultural patterns influence personality and social behavior. Together, they advanced the Culture and Personality School, which argued that human behavior is profoundly shaped by cultural conditioning rather than biological determinism. Through Boas and his students, anthropology shifted from ranking societies to understanding them in depth, marking a turning point in the discipline's evolution and setting the foundation for modern ethnographic practice. While Boas was transforming American anthropology, British anthropologists were developing another influential approach known as structural functionalism. Scholars such as Bronisław Malinowski and Alfred Radcliffe Brown viewed society as an integrated system in which every part plays a vital role in maintaining stability and continuity. Malinowski, based on his immersive fieldwork in the Trobriand Islands, argued that customs, institutions, and cultural practices exist because they satisfy fundamental human needs. He believed that the key to understanding a culture was to examine how its traditions function to meet psychological and biological requirements of individuals. Radcliffe Brown, on the other hand, emphasized the structure of society rather than individual needs. He saw social institutions such as kinship, law, religion, and economy as interconnected elements that work together to maintain social order. In his studies of African societies, he described how roles, norms, and relationships create a stable framework that supports society as a whole. Structural functionalism emphasized synchronic analysis, focusing on how societies operate at a given moment rather than tracing their historical development. This led to highly detailed ethnographies that meticulously mapped social relationships and institutional functions. A defining contribution of this school was the establishment of participant observation as the gold standard of anthropological research. Malinowski's insistence that anthropologists should live among the people they study, learn the language, and observe daily life transformed methodology across the discipline. Although later scholars criticized structural functionalism for overlooking conflict, change, and power, its influence on fieldwork and the analysis of social structure remains foundational. It provided anthropology with systematic ways to understand how societies sustain themselves and how cultural institutions contribute to social harmony. As anthropology matured, it expanded into multiple theoretical traditions that sought to explain cultural diversity from different angles. After functionalism, the discipline witnessed the rise of structuralism, led by Claude Lévi-Strauss, who argued that human thought operates through universal mental structures. He proposed that myths, kinship patterns, and cultural categories reveal underlying binary oppositions that shape how people make sense of the world. This approach shifted anthropology toward understanding the deep structures of the human mind, rather than surface-level customs. Another major school was cultural materialism, developed by Marvin Harris, which emphasized that material conditions such as environment, technology, and economic organization largely shape culture. According to this view, cultural practices evolve in response to practical needs and ecological constraints. Symbolic or interpretive anthropology, associated with Clifford Geertz, took a different direction by focusing on the meanings people assign to actions, rituals, and symbols. Geertz famously described culture as a web of significance and argued that anthropology is an interpretive science that seeks to understand these webs. Feminist anthropology emerged in the 1970s to challenge male-centered assumptions in earlier theories. It highlighted women's experiences, gendered power relations, and the ways gender shapes cultural systems. In addition, postmodern and critical approaches questioned the objectivity of the anthropologist, emphasizing reflexivity, narrative construction, and the impact of power on knowledge production. These schools did not replace each other. Instead, they enriched the discipline by offering complementary perspectives. Each theoretical lens provided new questions, new methods, and new ways of understanding why cultures differ and how societies function, allowing anthropology to become an increasingly diverse and self-critical field. Anthropology today extends far beyond academic debates. It is increasingly applied to real-world problems and complex global issues. Applied anthropology uses anthropological insights to address challenges in public health, development projects, business environments, education systems, and humanitarian work. Anthropologists help design culturally appropriate health campaigns, advise on community development strategies, and provide insights for organizations seeking to understand user behavior. This practical orientation has widened the scope of anthropology and increased its relevance in policymaking and corporate sectors. Modern anthropology also examines new areas shaped by globalization, technological change, and environmental crises. Urban anthropology studies life in cities, migration, and social inequality. Environmental anthropology investigates human-environment interactions and community responses to climate change. Digital anthropology explores online worlds, social media behavior, and how technology influences identity and communication. The discipline has become increasingly interdisciplinary, with anthropologists collaborating with economists, sociologists, environmental scientists, and data analysts. Another major shift is the rise of anthropologists from non-Western societies who bring insider perspectives and broaden the field's intellectual diversity. Anthropology today focuses strongly on issues of power, inequality, and social justice. Topics such as human rights, religion, law, conflict, and global development feature prominently. The field is also more reflective about the role of the researcher and the ethics of representation. All these developments show that anthropology is no longer limited to studying remote communities. It has become a vital tool for understanding contemporary challenges, navigating cultural differences, and informing practical solutions in an interconnected world. Recent years have brought new global trends that continue to reshape anthropology. One major trend is the growing focus on globalization and its effects on cultural identity, migration, and social change. Anthropologists examine how people navigate global networks, economic systems, and transnational movement, and how cultural practices adapt to these shifts. Another major trend is the rapid rise of digital anthropology, which studies how digital spaces such as social media, online communities, gaming environments, and virtual communication shape human behavior, relationships, and cultural norms. As technology becomes central to daily life, anthropologists explore how digital cultures influence identity, activism, privacy, and social interaction. Environmental and medical anthropology have also grown, with researchers studying climate change, epidemics, pollution, food systems, and health disparities. Anthropologists contribute to global policy discussions by analyzing community responses to crises and recommending culturally grounded solutions. There is also increasing emphasis on public anthropology, which encourages anthropologists to communicate their findings to wider audiences, work directly with communities, and influence public debate. Another trend is the growing interdisciplinarity of the field. Collaborative research with psychologists, ecologists, computer scientists, and political scientists has become increasingly common. Meanwhile, post-colonial critiques and reflexive approaches have pushed anthropologists to examine their own positionality and the historical power imbalances embedded in research. Overall, global anthropology today is dynamic, diverse, and responsive to the major issues of the 21st century, continually expanding into new domains as societies evolve and new challenges emerge. Anthropology in Pakistan has developed its own distinct identity shaped by history, culture, and evolving national challenges. In the early years, much anthropological work on Pakistan was conducted by foreign researchers studying tribal societies, ethnic groups, and rural communities. Over time, however, Pakistani scholars began establishing their own research traditions, rooted in ethnographic fieldwork and local perspectives. Pakistani anthropologists examine a wide range of topics, including tribal structures, kinship systems, gender relations, religious practices, urbanization, class transformations, and national identity. Their work highlights the complexity and diversity of Pakistani society. Prominent scholars, such as Akbar Ahmed, contributed significantly to the understanding of tribal societies, Islam, and social change in Pakistan. His writings aim to explain cultural systems within Pakistan and also promote dialogue across societies. Other researchers have explored themes such as rural development, pastoral economies, education, political behavior, and the experiences of marginalized groups. Universities across Pakistan now offer anthropology programs, creating new generations of researchers. In recent years, there has been noticeable growth in social science publishing, with increasing interest in anthropological studies that address contemporary societal changes. NGOs, development organizations, and social sector institutions also employ anthropologists for community assessments, program design, and policy advising. As Pakistan undergoes rapid urbanization, shifting social dynamics, and evolving cultural patterns, anthropology provides essential insights for understanding change, addressing social problems, and designing culturally sensitive solutions. The discipline continues to expand, reflecting Pakistan's growing interest in applying anthropological knowledge to real-world challenges and academic exploration alike. For CSS aspirants, understanding anthropology is valuable not only academically, but also professionally. Anthropology explores what makes us human by studying both our biological foundations and our cultural worlds. This dual focus helps future civil servants appreciate how diverse communities think, behave, and adapt. Anthropology's holistic nature makes it especially useful for addressing complex national issues. Whether dealing with disaster management, health interventions, education reforms, or policy planning, anthropological insights help ensure that solutions align with cultural realities. When writing exam answers, it is essential to begin with a strong definition of anthropology as a holistic and comparative study of humans, followed by its major branches: cultural, archaeological, biological, and linguistic. You should then discuss key historical developments, including the classical evolutionists, Boas's cultural relativism, and the functionalist school led by Malinowski and Radcliffe Brown. Explaining major theoretical contributions such as structuralism, cultural materialism, symbolic anthropology, feminist anthropology, and postmodern critiques shows depth of understanding. Contemporary trends like globalization, digital media, health anthropology, and applied research highlight anthropology's ongoing relevance. Finally, connecting these ideas to Pakistan strengthens your answer. Referring to local anthropologists, ethnographic studies, and cultural insights demonstrates contextual awareness. By explaining how anthropology informs development work, policy formulation, and community engagement, you show the examiner that you understand its practical importance. Overall, anthropology equips civil servants with the cultural sensitivity, analytical skills, and broad perspective needed to serve a diverse population effectively. Mastering these concepts will enable you to craft strong, comprehensive answers for high-scoring CSS exam responses. Thank you, CSS aspirants, for joining this foundational session on anthropology. I hope this journey through the history, theories, and applications of the discipline has enriched your understanding and inspired you to explore further. If you found this video helpful, please support us by subscribing to the Crash CSS channel and pressing the bell icon so you never miss an update. Your support motivates us to create more high-quality content designed to help you excel in the CSS exams. Stay curious, keep learning, and we'll see you in the next session.